Well, good morning. Longhaultanker here, straight razor shaving with Longhaultanker. Thank you for joining me this morning. And today is Sunday, the 21st of July, 2024 at approximately 0840 Central Time, United States. I am at the Love's Truck Stop at Herculeum. I'll tell you more about that. Why am I here, not 40 miles on further to the road, down the road? Anyway, going to do a straight razor shave this morning and had a nice hot shower. As usual here, have very tepid sink water, but we will make do and get done. And so let's go through the equipment that I'm going to use this morning. So I'm using razors from my newly created 7-day roll-up with the black leather Thiers Zissard roll-up, 7-day roll-up. And I've turned it into an all-star collection of my vintage mint razors. And you saw the last video where I used the Fritz Brock tennis razor in mint condition, number 87. I've got two just alike, and I bought one about 3 months ago, and the other one about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It came in, and you saw me working on the second one. I saw you heard me tell about it, and so today we're using the Dovo Bergischer Low. This is the vintage model. Let's see if there's a number on it. No, but it says Dovo Soligen made in Germany on the back side. And it's got inexpensive, I could say cheap, scales on it. There's no wedge in here. The wedge is kind of molded into the plastic. The two pieces come together and form the wedge. And so I'm not real crazy about that. Maybe that's the way that they were able to cut a couple of pennies off of it. And anyway, this was honed up on the number one version that I used on the last video was honed up on the Arkansas black, and this one was honed up on the Arkansas translucent, Norton Arkansas translucent versus the Dan's Whetstone hard black, surgical black on the Fritz Brock tennis in the last video. All right, and the soap this morning is going to be Sterling Soap Company's Dunsha. Very delightful, aromatic, sweet, perfumey scent coming off of the wet bowl. And so let's get going. I've got a few things to say about my travel adventures, more appropriately, the nonsense that comes out of the trucking companies, and how this load came about. Notice I'm on my way back to Portage, Wisconsin, as I said in the last video, after 10 days of hurricane and the subsequent fallout, and putting the pieces back together. And I understand that, but it's just nonetheless frustrating. And it just keeps you hanging, keeps you hanging, keeps you hanging. So I'm loading up my brush heavily, as I often do. I'd rather have too much than not enough. Little misty out this morning at Herculaneum. It's supposed to rain all week down in Houston while I'm away. All right, we'll let that sit there. Give the face a nice massage. Make sure everything is nice and hydrated. So I said in the last video that after I completed the shave, I was going to call my dispatch and see where the load was. It was getting loaded, you know, where is he, what's he doing, and what time is he going to get back to the yard? Well, of course we had that cloud source, which is an interesting problem of its own, but we had that cloud source problem on Friday. And computers were down, and the driver didn't get away. He was late getting, and so when I called at about 9:30 Friday morning or so after the shave, come to find out he was number 3 in line. So there's one under the rack getting loaded. There's 2 empties in front of him, and so he's number 3 in line. And you calculate, for calculation purposes, you calculate approximately 2 hours for each truck. So he's 6 hours off schedule. And I'm just fuming. I'm burning up. His load time was originally scheduled for, and I know this because I got a copy of the paperwork confirming my position on the load as the delivery driver. And I see the times for load time, I see the time for delivery time. I got addresses of both and phone numbers of both locations. And so he should have been back to the yard no later than noon. As it turned out, he was back to the yard by 2:30-ish. I didn't get out of the gate until almost 4:30 because I had a couple of issues of my own that I had to take care of with the trailer that should have been caught and taken care of, but, you know, nonetheless. And so my first leg of this journey from the yard in Houston, Texas, takes me to Shreveport, Louisiana. Truck stop coffee. Oh yeah, and I got a straw in it. All right, let's go. And so that put me into Shreveport, left the yard approximately 4:30, and that put me into Shreveport. It's a 5-hour leg. And that put me in there 21:45, 9:45. Oops, I still missed it. Oh, my brush for this morning is QED Select Manchurian Silvertip Badger. And 24 millimeter. Did I say 424? And just a wonderful little brush. And so I normally get into Shreveport between 5 and 6 o'clock, and here I got in at 9:45. And so I'm approximately 4 hours behind schedule. You know, it's not that it kills me, but I mean, my preferred driving hours are getting underway, started driving at about 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., whatever. No, not much earlier than that. I've been, anyway. And so that set me back in order to do a 10-hour break to get a new fresh set of hours for the next morning. I could not get underway before 7:45 a.m., 8 o'clock. I just called it, in my mind, I just said 8 o'clock. So that annoyed me because the second day is a longer day. It's anywhere from 9 to 10 hours, depending upon where I stop, whether I stop here or at that other place 40 miles on up the road. So I got in here yesterday at I left at 8. It was right around 6:30 something. But I knew that once I got here, things would be okay because I have a late start. I come in and get my shower and shave. And as long as the wheels are rolling, it's a 7-hour leg from here to curbside parking and Portage. But let me tell you more about how this, you may recall me saying recently that when I got back from the previous load and the power was out and they were having troubles, anyway, they put me on a Missoula, Montana load. And I got up Monday morning. It was supposed to load Monday morning. And I fully expected, I got up Monday morning, did my shave to get ready for work. And I called in, as I usually do after the shave. And he said, oh, that's been canceled. It's been moved to Wednesday. They never called me and told me. So I called in on Wednesday. Did the same thing, got up, did my shave, and because it was 2 days later, 48 hours worth of growth on my face. And one of the new dispatchers that we now recently hired, and I told her what I wanted. I wanted to know where he was, what he was doing, when he's going to be back. The preload driver. Told her I was going to Missoula, Montana. And she comes back and said, well, she put me on hold. She came back with the senior dispatch, who's been there for about 9 to 12 months. Well, we don't show you on a Missoula, Montana load, but we do show you on a Medford, Oregon load. I said, I've never been told anything about Medford. In fact, I've got a copy of the work order that says I'm going to Missoula, Montana. Well, let me find out what's going on. And see, so the senior dispatcher comes back on a few minutes later and says, yeah, there was a mistake on that. It was supposed to go to Medford all along. The shipper gave us the wrong address. And it was the name of the same, the name of the company was the same in both places, in Missoula and Medford, one of those large forestry products kind of places. Like Georgia Pacific, or what's that one, Willamette something? I should know that, that's where I grew up. Boise Cascade, something like that. None of the names that I mentioned are actually the company. But having been to Medford several times, it's a big sawmill. They make lumber products and plywood. But it had been postponed from Wednesday to Thursday, load time, another day. And I said, look, this thing has been messed up so many times since Monday. And I would just as soon not go to Medford. It's a 5-day run, it's 2,200 miles. I said, how about I stay home one more day? And you tell me if there's a load going to Portage, loading on Friday morning. So he looked it up and said, yep, and it's unassigned, there's nobody on it. I said, is anybody's head going to explode if I get moved from the Medford load to the Portage load? I said, no, if you want it, that's what I'll give you. I said, please do. And here I am at Herculeo. So I've been home for 10 days. And I knew it was going to take a week to 10 days for the chaos to sort itself out after the hurricane and after the power outage, and then we got the crowdsource. Of course, there was no way to know that and factor that in. But I knew it was going to take approximately 7 to 10 days for them to get themselves sorted out, and by then it would be coming up on Friday, and I would get myself back on a Portage load, which I did. And this is number 13 in a row. And delivery is tomorrow morning at 0700. I'll make delivery, go to the nearby Lowe's truck stop up there. There's one within about 10 miles. And top up my fuels, diesel and DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. And I'll get underway, start coming back, and about 10 o'clock or so, I'll call in and see if the next Friday's load to Portage, Wisconsin is on the board yet and available for assignment. And they'll probably say, no, not yet, but call back this afternoon. And it should be around 4 o'clock. I said, well, don't you give it to anybody else. It's almost like a record recording that goes off every time. Some of that soap got in my mouth. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, move over to the delightful, delicious implosion and explosion of the Democratic Party. Just, it couldn't be more entertaining. So have you seen whose face is surfacing in the news just in the last 24 hours? As more and more there's a battle going on. Does Joe drop out or not drop out? Is somebody forcing him, compelling him to drop out? And let me just make this statement right here, that if he doesn't drop out, either willingly and compliantly, or even under duress drop out, they'll kill him. Mark my words, you heard it here first, and I don't know if you've already thought about it. The deep state's already tried to kill one candidate. And it's not a stretch of the imagination. Everybody's telling him to drop out. And Dr. Jill is saying, nope, ain't gonna do it. Hunter's saying, no, ain't gonna do it. And poor Joe, he don't even know where he's at. I've got a friend that's saying, he's not gonna drop out. Okay, fine. Every poll shows that Trump is beating poor Joe everywhere. And did you hear his Trump's rally speech last night? Yeah. He turned the rhetoric up. You know, Joe's a fool. Joe's incompetent, and those around him. And so the rhetoric, Trump had not called Joe a fool directly. It's one thing to say that the things they do are foolish, but directly calling him a fool, that's something Trump has not done until last night. Almost as if he's taunting him. Hey, Joe, don't drop out. We want you. We want you. And of course, that will get Joe's arrogance up and his anger up. And become more defiant to the powers that be that are pressuring him out. And so many, even Nancy Pelosi's coming out and saying, well, I don't know, maybe he should. But if he ultimately chooses not to drop out before this DNC convention, somewhere between now and Election Day, they'll put him down, which will break open the whole. Nobody wants Kamala Harris. And the polls showed in a head-to-head, or even with third-party candidates, Trump beats Kamala. As well as, I will add, well, what'll happen is, here's what's going to happen. He'll either drop out and they'll have an open convention, or he'll stay in and they will eliminate him before the election. Now, whether that throws it, ordinarily you would think that that would throw it to Kamala Harris, but it might not. They might take her out too. Don't forget, Schumer said that when the deep state, the intelligence community, turns against you, they have 7 ways from Sunday to take you out, to deal with you. A bitter lesson learned by John F. Kennedy. And let's just get past this one little thing right now, that Lee Harvey Oswald was not a lone gunman. And I don't think there's anybody left in America today that thinks so, generally speaking. Unless you've just never read a book, you have never even wondered, well, what about those shooters behind the grassy knoll? Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But as I said, look who's been showing up in the news just in the last 24 hours, none other than Hillary Clinton. And I've been saying for a long while, and I've heard it from others, much more prominent, public, reliable necessarily than myself, and you could say, well, it's time to pass the baton, that she is beyond her useful, her shelf date. Maybe so, but name me any other Democratic contender that has the governmental experience. Now, you don't have to agree with it, I'm just saying. Not to mention the fact that she thinks she's owed. She thinks this 2016 was stolen from her. And she even said so. And she thought that she was the rightful heir to the throne in 2016. Her husband is a former president. She was Secretary of State, Senator from New York. She survived the 2016 campaign enough that the past controversies, Whitewater, Filegate, etc., are behind her. And so she comes to the process with a whole lot of gravitas. There's a word that was used. She comes to the process with a whole lot of gravitas. Again, I'm not saying anything about her policies. I don't like her. She needs to be in prison. All opinions expressed in this commentary are my own, except for those who I have been informed by in other media. Another thing that Trump emphasized, and you can say it was just campaign rhetoric if you want to, but this is not an ordinary election, and things that are often said mean a whole lot more than just the plain meaning of the words themselves. We are not going to let them rig this election. Well, how are they going to do that? More poll watchers, more attorneys, same old, same old. And answer me this. How did Hillary really lose the 2016 election? Do you remember it was hours and hours and hours, if not days, before she came out and conceded the election? And all the behind the scenes commentary says that she was up in the room, drunk as a skunk, throwing a fit. And more rumors and information started coming out that she had actually paid $4 billion. Look it up. To buy the election. Not just ordinary campaign expenses, but more like Dominion voting machine involvement. Which begs a whole lot of other questions, like if Trump was able to stop, and those that were helping him were able to stop the fraud in 2016, why did they let the fraud go through in 2020? And they did. You know, there's been protests and lawsuits and explanations, and Mike Lindell and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, and what efforts they've engaged in late November and December of 2020 and beyond, and even to today. There's something at play here. They stopped Hillary and stopped the fraud. In 2016, they let the fraud go through in 2020. They beat Hillary once, fair and square, because by stopping the fraud, they actually allowed a free and fair election, which Trump won in 16. They let it go through in 2020. Now, consider, I'm just putting Hillary up as a possible leading contender if Joe goes. And if he doesn't go, they'll kill him. And Trump emphasized over and over in last night's speech, you know, this was a rally in Grand Rapids. This is not the convention speech, which brings another thought to mind about that operatic aria at the end of the convention and the signals and signs it was sending, and I'll get to that in a minute. And so, what would happen if through all of this arguing and bickering and factions, the likes of which we've never seen before in the Democratic Party, because we've always been told that the Democratic Party is unshakably unified. And whenever they stand opposed, they don't have the peel-off rhinos like we have. And they confront their issues as a unified force until the fangs come out, until the daggers come out. And holding power and who they think is best to hold power is what matters to them. Because their religion is not Jesus Christ, their religion is power. And so they have a duplicitous, compliant media that helps them to retain power through their propaganda. Did you ever play on a sports team where you either had to forfeit or the other team forfeited and you won by default? What's the best way to win a game? To not even have to play it. What would happen through all of the Democrat wrangling that if they were unable to come to a consensus on a proper nomination for a candidate, if they were unable to field a candidate, get on the ballot by all the deadlines, and wasn't there already some talk about Biden not being able to make the ballot in Ohio, and then some special behind-the-scenes operation was conducted to make an allowance, to make an exception, to bend the rules that would otherwise require them to forfeit in Ohio. Because even if Hillary moves forward, and a lot of people think that she may be the most qualified to be on there, as a replacement, she's still got to get nominated and get delegates at an open convention. What if she can't do it with all of the other factions? So part of me wants to say I wouldn't be a bit surprised that they're unable to nominate a replacement wouldn't surprise me at all. So how do you win and how do you prevent fraud? The other team that just doesn't show up, and you have a ballot empty of an opposing candidate. And it's not unprecedented in American history. There's twice, I don't know who the second one was. I remember in hearing in this discussion, I heard that George Washington, and I remember from history that George Washington ran unopposed when he was reelected to his second term. I'd forgotten all about that. And I don't know who the other one was. So I certainly expect an attempt on Joe's existence. Of course, they're going to blame it on Trump supporters. And that'll just further throw the country into chaos. And what was the other thing I was going to make? Interesting times, to be sure. Something else I was going to comment on, and I forgot what it was. Ah. Oh, I remember. The operatic aria at the end of the convention. What was that all about? Like one commentator said last night, he said, usually they end these things with upbeat, up-tempo, some sort of rock and roll song, some sort of upbeat tempo country song, or like he usually does with some sort of YMCA type song. Hold On, he uses oftentimes. But no, well, what's the name of that? I'm going to foul it up, so don't get after me. But something like Doma Suma or Suma Doma or whatever. And I've heard it all my life, and I love it. It's a wonderful song. And as soon as it came on at the convention, my wife and I are sitting there, we're watching it, and I got all excited. I said, oh no, you know what that means? Do you know what that means? And she said, no, I don't know what it means. And I said, that's the song they played at the end of Godfather 3, when Michael Corleone has taken out all of his competitors. Whoa! Well, I was wrong. It's not Godfather 3. It's The Sum of All Fears. I was right in application. I was wrong in particulars. And we were told throughout the convention how much Donald Trump loves music, how much he picks all the playlists, how he likes to play DJ at parties and so forth. And I would remind you some time ago at one of the rallies, just off stage, as down the little corridor pathway that he walked when he exited out, and you could see down the end of the corridor. At the back end, posted on, hung up on the big rails back there, was a U.S. flag with black stars. Do you remember that? Now, was that just somebody being creatively or artistically creative? Or did it send a signal? Well, it sent a signal. A military signal. Just like flying a flag upside down means distress. A U.S. flag with black stars indicates no quarter. Was there a signal being sent by the playing and singing, very good singer by the way, was there a signal being sent by the singing of, the playing of that song? No quarter. Your end is going to be, and remember what, and I saw a video and the guy went through it. Remember what The Sum of All Fears is all about. The attempted assassination of a U.S. president, followed by the parties involved trying to get the U.S. and Russia involved in a nuclear war, and that's how the movie starts, is a limited tactical nuclear bomb in Baltimore. Morgan Freeman is playing this. It's one of those Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan movies. It's almost as if, as one person puts it, there's a movie playing out in front of us, or as another person puts it, a pantomime playing out in front of us. Trying to wake everybody up. Yeah, I'm one of those guys, okay? So, and to that end, explain to me the gold balloons that fell from the rafters with the red, white, and blue. If signals are not being sent. But they are being sent. That's the point. Gold will destroy the Fed, one party says. And we got the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, China, India, and I forget what the S is it South Africa, all moving to a gold-based currency. What will a gold-based currency do to the US fiat dollar? It'll destroy it. We can't compete. Saudi Arabia has already moved off the petrodollar. They did not renew the contract. It hasn't fully worked its way through the financial system, but when it does, the US economy is going to crash. That single event alone is enough to destroy us. And then we saw where China's dumping all of the US debt, that bonds that they had bought. Close enough. Nothing I have said you're going to find on mainstream media. Very little of what I have said. Yeah, some you're going to find on mainstream media, and certainly not on liberal news, including Fox. Yeah, I said it, they're liberal. And you know it, come on now. All right. Bergershirlow, Dovo, wonderful razor, wonderful razor. Yes, I hope that blue ink and stamping stays strong. Now I see a little bit of fading on the letter E right there on Bergershirlow. I already see a little bit of fading going on there. And I don't know if that happened because since I've gotten the razor. That's only the third or fourth usage of that razor. My sink water's grown cold, so I'm going to put some more in. And for the razor, for the head shave, will be the Dovo Colonel Conch that I used in the last video. Well, I'm glad to see that the Colonel Conch has gotten down to some good metal, giving me good head shaves. I might even put it in rotation for a face shave on some of the older vintage razors that I've got. It's a handsome razor. Colonel Ichabod Conch Dovo. It's got replacement scales on it, but it's just with the bolsters or on this end, it's just, and the inlay right here, it's just so pretty. And I did bring the clippers out this morning, and not that I needed a head shave, but I had 2 days, 3 days of whatever worth of growth on my head. My clippers at home don't seem to be adjusted as closely. I can get a shorter haircut from the clippers I carry in my truck. But here of late, since I've been coming on these portage loads, I have not had occasion to use them because I'm home on Wednesday. I take my shower shave haircut on Wednesday after a week. But I was right. They do, my home clippers do not cut as closely as the truck clippers, but they're newer. I just bought that back in, I don't know when it was, back in the winter, but I have not had occasion to use them that much or regularly because I've been on these portage loads so much. 13, you know, that's almost 3 months worth of loads, and I've had a couple of Calgary loads, 2 or 3, go back into December, maybe even more, 4 or 5. I'd have to go back and look at my calendar. I keep a calendar where I spend the night, and load details, trailer number, order number, such like. Things that are pertinent that I need to know at some point along the way, and I keep them right there, all handy in one place. I got a little bit more right there. Here's the old line, here's the new line. I'll let that go out till Wednesday. And when I have my next haircut. Yeah, that's good enough for now.
Customer 14, your channel is ready. Please proceed to channel 1.
This door is equipped with a deadbolt that says vacant or occupied, so I'm not too worried about intrusion. And that's a good thing. So I'm gonna get done here, go back to the truck, do my post-shave cleanup. Warm me up a breakfast burrito, and I'll eat it while I'm driving as I get started this morning. Before I leave here, I'll come back in and do all my refills for water and ice. So I'm fully loaded. A dog was barking. I don't know who made up these rules that allows dogs into a public store, especially one that serves food. We have become such a weak people. I gotta have my comfort dog. And if you're blind and need a seeing eye dog, I get it. And you have all my sympathy, truly. My emotional support dog. How does that even just sound? Doesn't that just sound as weak and insipid as possible? That was a Ozma alum block that I applied to my face. Okay, there it is. And it's just lovely, just absolutely lovely. Let me give a shout out to my usual crew, and I appreciate you guys. Bill M, Lukey3262, Martin Shave Tests, Dapper Shave, Jock in South Africa, Sean Staplefeld in Puerto Rico. Nice young man, very nice young man. I communicate with him. I communicate with almost all you guys. That's one of the reasons why I like y'all so much. And Eric at the Cajun Blade. Let me say a little something about Eric. I've been communicating with him more lately as well. And I've got to. He's my neighbor over in Louisiana, and not so very far away. He may have something to say here, and I don't mean to spill your beans, Eric, but I love the Zulu gray stone. And ever since and I'll have more to say about this on Thursday when I do my honing video with the Zulu gray. Everybody's been so disappointed in the guy that used to run that over in South Africa, Michael something. I don't remember his last name. People lost money. People never got their orders. And so there may be some news about a new supplier, and I'll leave that to Eric to share about the Zulu gray, and that would be exciting for those of you that have seen me use the Zulu gray, seen the shaves that I get from a Zulu gray edge, and are interested and it's relatively inexpensive. So, compared to an Arkansas or conical or other high-end synthetics. But for a natural stone, it's relatively, some of the newer fad stones I don't know anything about. But anyway, I won't say anything more on that. That's all I've got. I thank you so much for joining me. Let me give a special shout out to Mark at Friendship Shaving. I've always enjoyed his shave videos, especially the ones that he uses a straight razor with. He's over in the UK. And I saw him leave some comments in, I forget who it was, but one of our fellows, he's watching. And so Mark, if you get around to watching this, you're welcome. Good to see you, and I'm watching you, buddy. I'm watching you. All right. Talk to you later. See you down the road.